You may never have heard his name, yet his ideas still shape how millions of Muslims understand their faith. In the bustling cities of Central Asia, over 1,000 years ago, one quiet scholar set out to reconcile faith and reason. His name was Abu Mansur al-Maturidi, a theologian from the village of Māturīdī near Samarkand, who died in 944 of the Common Era. To understand his world, picture the Samanid Empire at its height, where Persian culture, Arabic scholarship, and Turkic frontiers met along the Silk Road. Samarkand, in the 10th century, was a crossroads of caravans, languages, and ideas, alive with marketplaces, mosques, and study circles. In this vibrant setting, the young al-Maturidi studied Quran, law, and theology in Hanafi circles that valued careful reasoning as well as transmitted reports. He grew up at a time when Islamic thought was fiercely contested, with rationalist Muʿtazilites, strict traditionalists, and emerging Ashʿarī theologians arguing over God, freedom, and justice. The central question that gripped al-Maturidi's mind was whether human reason could truly know God, or whether revelation alone was enough. Some voices in his age distrusted philosophy and logic, fearing that too much reasoning would weaken religious certainty. Others believed human intellect could judge revelation itself, accepting only what seemed rational and rejecting what appeared mysterious or paradoxical. Al-Maturidi refused both extremes, arguing that sound reason and authentic revelation came from the same divine source and could never, ultimately, contradict each other. For him, reason was a God-given tool that obliged every person to recognize the Creator, even before hearing any prophetic message. Yet he insisted that reason on its own was limited, and that revelation brought truths humanity could never discover unaided. This balance between mind and scripture became the heart of what later generations called the Māturīdī school of Sunni theology. In his major work, Kitāb al-Tawḥīd, the Book of Divine Unity, al-Maturidi carefully examined arguments for God's existence and refuted competing doctrines. Page after page, he engaged the claims of philosophers, dualists, skeptics, and rival theologians, using their own methods while defending orthodox belief. He taught that God's oneness means absolute uniqueness, rejecting any idea that divine attributes threatened God's unity or resemble created qualities. On the debated issue of human freedom, al-Maturidi affirmed that God creates all actions, but grants people real choice and responsibility within that created power. He criticized views that turn humans into helpless puppets, yet he also opposed any claim that people could create their own acts independently of God. In questions of faith, he argued that Imām is rooted in inner conviction and assent, not merely in spoken formulas or fluctuating emotions. At the same time, he insisted that faith must be supported by obedience, even if sin alone did not expel a person from the community of believers. Beyond abstract theory, al-Maturidi devoted a lifetime to interpreting the Quran, producing a vast commentary known as Taʻwīlāt al-Sunnah. In that work, he brought legal training, linguistic analysis, and theological reflection together, always seeking harmony between the apparent meaning and deeper implications of the verses. His teaching circle in Samarkand drew students from across Transoxiana, carrying his ideas to Bukhara, Khorasan, and the Turkic lands to the north. Many of these disciples were jurists and judges who quietly wove Māturīdī principles into courtrooms, madrasas, and Friday sermons. Unlike some famous contemporaries, al-Maturidi did not travel widely or seek political patronage, preferring a life of teaching, writing, and debate in his own city. His influence spread not through dramatic public confrontations, but through carefully argued books and the steady work of generations of students. Over time, his approach became closely associated with the Hanafi legal tradition, especially in Central Asia, the Volga region, and lands that would later form the Ottoman Empire. For Turkic and Central Asian Muslims, Māturīdī theology offered a way to affirm Sunni orthodoxy while preserving a strong role for reason and moral responsibility. Even when rival Ashʿarī theology became dominant in many Arab centers, Māturīdī thought remained deeply rooted from Samarkand to Anatolia and beyond. Centuries after his death, scholars copied and commented on his works, sometimes debating details, yet rarely abandoning his overall balance between intellect and revelation. Modern Muslim thinkers who engage science, philosophy, and pluralistic societies often rediscover al-Maturidi as a classical voice open to rational inquiry without surrendering religious commitment. They find in his writings a nuanced defense of belief that neither fears questions nor empties faith of its transcendent mysteries. Standing at the intersection of Greek philosophy, Quranic revelation, and the lived concerns of ordinary believers, al-Maturidi crafted a theology with both rigor and pastoral sensitivity. He understood that believers needed more than slogans, offering them carefully reasoned answers to doubts about destiny, justice, and the wisdom of divine commands. At the same time, he warned against pride in human intellect, reminding his readers that true knowledge leads to humility before the Creator. Today, the grave attributed to al-Maturidi in Samarkand is visited by pilgrims and students who see him as a guardian of balanced Sunni creed. They come from distant countries, reciting Fatiha beside the simple tomb and recalling the quiet scholar whose pen outlived empires. In an age still torn between blind literalism and rootless skepticism, his insistence on harmony between faith and reason continues to speak with surprising freshness. When you hear Muslims describe God as both utterly transcendent and intimately just, you are hearing echoes of the questions al-Maturidi wrestled with more than a millennium ago. His legacy reminds us that classical Islam was never a monolith, but a living conversation across regions, languages, and temperaments. Within that conversation, al-Maturidi stood for patience, nuance, and confidence that truth could withstand honest scrutiny and hard questions. Imagine him in a modest Samarkand study circle, listening carefully before responding, weighing every argument against revelation and sound reason. That image of a thoughtful, unhurried scholar may be his greatest lesson in an impatient, anxious, and polarized world.